I would like to call this meeting to order at 7:02. And I will ask Lisa to determine our attendance. Lisa, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay, I don't know where my video is, but I'll work on it. Okay, I'll take attendance. Joe,
Here.
John,
Here.
Greg,
Yes.
Angela,
Here.
Alex,
Here.
Justin,
Here.
Jen,
Here.
I'm here. Jane. Jane. Okay. Julie,
She is
Here.
here. I don't know if you saw that.
Peter,
Here.
and Mary.
Here.
Okay.
All right. At this point, I will ask if there is any member of the public that has any comments on items on our agenda. If you would like to speak, I will need you to please use the raise hand feature, which you can find under reactions at the bottom of your screen. There's like there it is. It's at the very bottom of your reactions. It says raise hand. So if you could do that, that would help me, because I'm having to target between two different screens and I may miss you. So the first one I see is Todd.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, and if each person could identify themselves and the town they're from.
Yes, hi, my name is Todd Roopsamen. I am from Woodbury, actually. My son tuitions into Chippewa Middle School. And I just wanted to make a comment about the discussion about football later. Should I make that comment now, or should I wait until we get to the agenda, agenda?
No, actually, we do this now because we don't have comments during the discussion by the board. So please, we'd love to hear your comments now.
Gotcha, great. Well, yeah, so we're residents of Woodbury right now. We moved here and sort of became familiar with the area. We did some research and found that Burnham and Chippewa had terrific programs, and we've really been pleased to be part of the Chippewa and Burnham educational community ever since. One of the things we ended up doing at the same time, around the same time, was my son had a passion for football, so we ended up having him participate in Pop Warner football. And I thought I had found the perfect solution, because when we first started at Burnham, I had spoken to to some of the parents, and then actually communicated with the gosh, I always draw a blank on this, but with the person who's in charge, what's her name? I can't remember, but the head person for the district, not the principal, but not the chancellor, whatever the title is. And I've been, what's that?
Superintendent, you got it.
Superintendent, that's it. Gosh, there you are, Megan. Thank you. I had heard that we were very close to having an agreement for the kids who did play football to be able to play for Brookfield in high school, and a busing arrangement and all, but it seems like that has fallen apart in the last, well, I guess since COVID showed up. And so we have a little bit of a dilemma here. We've got a couple of years to sort this out, but my son is very passionate about football. We'll see how that ends up playing out. But we've been planning on moving into the Region 12 district and purchasing a house. But the whole football thing would throw a monkey wrench in it. So I really just want to ask you guys if we could please try to figure out some sort of solution that would allow children like TJ to both attend Chippewa and continue on with football as they had done as they started to do. So that was the only point I wanted to make, but it was an important one, and I know it would create a dilemma for us in 2 years if we didn't have a solution that would allow him to be able to both play and attend Chippewa. Then we'd have a tough decision to make.
Okay, I thank you very much. The next person I see is Victoria Salon. would you please, yeah, you have to unmute, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. I also would like to discuss football. And my family moved here from Danbury to give our son Ryan a better education. And Ryan is an eighth grader, and he's played on Pop Warner teams in Danbury and Brookfield. He also plays for the Connecticut state team. And he's gone to nationals twice. And we would hate for his football career to end here because Chapag does not offer an option of football. We're not asking for a team to be created at Chapag. We're asking for an option to be, an option to be offered to the students who want to play and who do play currently, or for the upcoming students that still play Pop Warner who will be coming into Chapag. This is part of Ryan's life, and we love the education he's receiving at Chapag. We are so grateful that we're part of the Chapag community now, but I can't allow his career to end because we don't have an option. Another thing I wanted to really call attention to is the fact that Chapag is very well known in the other communities. When we go out and we present to the eighth graders, the Agriscience students are so thrilled with what they are presented with. This past November, October or November, whenever Chapag went out to the Danbury schools and to the Brookfield schools specifically to discuss the program, Ryan had many friends in both communities. And there were several students that were very interested in the Agriscience program. But when they were told that there was no football, it was no longer an option. These football players want that option, but also want the option of going to another school, such as Chapag. 3 of Ryan's friends in Danbury are now going to go to Immaculate and tuition into Immaculate because they offer football and Chapag does not. I can't imagine how many more students we would get if we offered that during our 8th grade presentations. I don't want to move from our area. We moved to Bridgewater specifically for the education we were going to receive. I don't think it's right that I should have to move out of district so my son can play football. Newtown wants my son, Brookfield wants my son, but I would have to tuition in. And I don't think that's right. All we're asking for is an option so that these kids can play football, whoever wants to.
Okay. I thank you very much for that. Are there any other comments? Does anyone else wish to add anything to this, to the discussion of items on the meeting tonight? By the way, once you've spoken, you can put your hand down. There's a way to turn it off under reactions.
I think my son Ryan wants to speak. He's supposed to raise his hand.
Okay, is he on a separate line?
No, Ryan, he just raised his hand.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Ryan Salon, and I'm an 8th grader at Chapag. And I'm here to talk about football. But before I get into that, I've been here at Chapag for 3 years. And 3 years ago in 5th grade, I was given a choice by my parents to either stay in Danbury schools or to move to Bridgewater and start school at Chapag. And as we can see, I chose to come to Chapag and leave Danbury. This was by far one of the best decisions I have ever made educationally, but the next best decision I've ever made was to start football at the age of 8. In those 5 years, football has become my life, obviously, aside from my education. those 5 years, I taught myself the game of football, and trust me, it was not easy. Probably one of the toughest things I've ever done. Football has taught me leadership. It has made me grow as a person and as a peer. But in football, the sport isn't the only thing that matters most. The most important thing is football is your education. And I've been told by every coach that has coached me that if I don't succeed in school, not only will I succeed in life, but I will not be on the team. And for me, I can't imagine a life where I'm not playing football, and not playing football is probably the worst thing that's going to ever happen to me. I play football year round, and not just for my town team. I'm also on the Connecticut State team. I've competed nationally twice, and I know Chapag will never have a team, but I'm asking you for an equal opportunity for me and other Chapag students who wish to play football and to have a team to play for. On the town team I play for, which is Brookfield, many players were excited about Chapag and their Agriscience program. But once they heard that football was not offered, they lost all interest and they said Chapag's out for me. Not offering football for students can be very impactful for their day-to-day lives. I noticed over the years that football has not only made me made me happy, but has taught me many life skills that I can carry with me throughout my life. I've learned how to be a leader by being the captain of all the teams I've played on. I've learned to be disciplined. I've learned respect. And most importantly, I've learned how to communicate and be a team player. And those are two things that are really important in life. By opening up an opportunity for students here at Chapag can only benefit you, and it can change homecoming. Students nationally can bring notoriety to Chapag and our community. It can bring our community together as one, and I say this because many people look forward in other towns to their high school football games on Friday nights or whatever it is. And trust me, those games at night, the feeling of playing under the lights as a player and watching your team play under the lights as a community from the stands is an energy that is unmatched and something that will never be forgettable, because it is amazing watching and playing. I constantly hear students around the school say how they want to go to other schools because they have football there and they don't want to drive all the way to Danbury, to Milford, Brookfield to go watch a football game. And I feel that will make the students happier to bring a team to Chapag that they could cheer for, and they know that it's their own school. And every school I know offers football, so why don't we? That's my one question. I'm asking you to vote yes to enter into a co-op with with Nonawag and Region 6, just for football and the happiness of your students to know that they have a team to play for. So please don't kill my football career, and please don't miss this opportunity to put Chapag on the map for football.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. You're an impressive young man, and I very much appreciate your comments. I don't know why this is going echo, but okay. Anyway, thank you so much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on either the football topic or any other topic that's on our agenda tonight? I don't see any of the hand up features, so we'll give it another moment.
Greg,
Yes, John.
I have this is probably a procedural question, but I know the board is going to discuss the football co-op later on in the agenda, but I'd like for either the Salines to stay, because I have a couple of questions, and it would be good to ask them of the person who is actually looking to play football. So,
Okay. Well, we hope that they can stick around for that segment of the agenda.
will
So
we
I
be
don't-
able to ask them questions at that point? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we can't do that. If you've got a question and you need some input from the people who want to play, that might be helpful. We don't usually do that, but I think this is a little bit unusual discussion for us. So Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on anything on tonight's agenda? I'm not seeing anyone, and therefore we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. So does anyone want to take the minutes of the Board of Ed meeting of December 6th of last year? Do you want to take those off the consent agenda? If
I
you
just
do,
have a
I'll,
quick question.
yes.
On reading the minutes, it said the meeting started at 7:36. Did we really start that late? I can't remember.
No, I don't think so. That's a good catch.
Well, you know how I am.
Wasn't that the break when we went to go to the auditorium?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
that's when we
that
come
may
back?
have been the reason. You're right. Okay. Yeah, and I was Zoom, so I didn't go to the meeting.
Oh, yeah. You know what we did? I think we may have started the meeting there. Does anyone remember that? Megan, do you remember that? Did we start the meeting in the auditorium?
started-
I'm gonna say Joe is correct. We started the meeting, then we went over to the auditorium. We listened to the performances, and then we came back.
Yeah, I think the minutes should actually say that the meeting was opened at 7 o'clock, and then we adjourned to the auditorium. And then started back in on the meeting agenda at 7:36. I think that's what it should be. Does anybody disagree with that?
No.
Okay. Then I guess we need to take these off the consent agenda to make that fix.
Sorry.
And then I guess we can, with that repair, do we have a motion to adopt those minutes?
I so move.
Second? Joe, I think you seconded.
That's fine.
Okay, so we moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. All those abstaining, please say you're abstaining. Okay, I see Lisa abstaining. She was not there at that meeting. So, okay, so it's 10 to 0 to 1. Those minutes are adopted as amended, and I hope we can get that amended set maybe put out to us with the change highlighted or something. Okay, excellent. We're going to move on to updates on COVID-19 and vaccinations. And boy, Megan, you got a lot to tell us. What a difference
yeah.
a year makes.
Who's done hearing from my emails? Yes, this is at this time the update that we have and our facts and figures from January 10th. I can tell you that I will be sending out another email today, and those numbers that I received today are not included in what I'm about to share with you tonight. So what I wanted to do, a little walk back in time. Before we had gone into the break and our last update, these were the numbers. And if you notice, not a single one of them were in the double digits. And we were really looking at some low infections across our schools. And these are what happened between the holidays and the break. You can see that at Chippewa Valley School for students, we had an increase of 63 cases from December 6th to now. We really saw a huge spike, and it wasn't because of in-school transmissions. This was really what we were seeing was activities over the holidays, potential gatherings, but really what we saw was the impact of Omicron, and just we knew that this was going to be the variant that spread more quickly, and we really did feel it within our communities. And so as we are adjusting to these numbers, we recognize some things happened, because I know the first thing people asked is, why aren't we going remote at this time? Why isn't it something where all the schools are going remote? And what happened is that during the break, Governor Lamont had removed local DPH and schools' ability to shift to remote learning. So our response was to then make certain that we were adjusting and creating a safe environment in which we were maximizing the space between people. We were making certain what were the protocols we can put in place to reduce aerosol production, to make certain children were masked up. What were some of the precautions and mitigation strategies we can look at, because we knew that this new variant of COVID, it really is right now all around us. So overall, cumulatively, we saw 88 members of our school community who tested positive for COVID since our last update. Just as a point of reference, 20% of our staff or students were absent last week. We recognize that some of the staffing issues that we've been able to put together, and I want to thank our union who worked with me over the break in order to make certain we were finding ways that teachers could work during their prep times, and we would do some extra pay for some coverages so that way we could just continue to keep our schools open. Of that, and one of the big shockers too, 45% of our custodial and maintenance staff were out last week. And to know that we were hitting ices and snow events, it really does have an impact on how we operate logistically. I want to give a big shout out to Don O'Leary, who actually was right hand in hand working with his staff, doing some of those jobs for those who were absent. And we also, in some of the work, created some additional contractors outside of the school to make certain that we could handle snow and winter events as they came up. We have also found that during the surge, people who were fully vaccinated, most of their symptoms were either mild or asymptomatic. We found that those who were not vaccinated, again, this is the generalization. I'm not going to say that there weren't some who deviated from this, but those who weren't vaccinated, we saw a little bit more like flu-like symptoms versus cold-like symptoms. In our conversation with our medical advisors, she noticed the same thing in some of her patients. So again, we created some environmental changes. We reduced our lunchroom capacity. We opened up new spaces. We created more spaces between the desks in each classroom, made certain that there were masks available. We did get the shipment of the N95 masks that were promised to us. However, we didn't receive those till the end of last week. But we certainly wanted to make certain that people are able to have the protection that is needed, given that right now we are in our surge. We have recommended those who can tolerate wearing 2 masks. That is another mitigation strategy. One of the things that our DPH always says, though, is that if you're going to have the 2 masks and you're going to constantly pull it down for air, you might as well just have the 1 mask. It is better to have the covering at all times versus the pulling it down. We are finding that some of our staff members do not like the N95 masks. They are not particularly comfortable, but we do have those available for those who would like to have that additional safety mitigation for themselves. We have removed the permission of gaiters as face coverings, and we are doing a strict enforcement of mask wearing. At Chippewa, they had done a community meeting to make certain that students know why we're going to have some of these enforcements happening, and just to let people know that this is something in which we are trying to combat the surge of cases. And even feedback from some of our Chippewa administrators, they've heard everything from students taking it very serious to others who feel that it's not an issue and we're making up numbers. So we recognize that for us, we continue to be transparent. We continue to make certain that we are promoting community health and community safety for one and all. And so we are at this point looking for compliance.
What year was Matt born, do you think?
We also have, if everybody can be on mute for a moment, please. The testing kits, I do want to thank our towns because we did not get our testing kits right away. Each one of our 3 towns gave us an allocation to make certain that our nurses had kits available in the event we had students who were showing symptoms or if we knew that they were in contact, because we also recognize that the availability of testing is sparse. Since that time, during last week, we were able to get the shipment of testing kits. I want to thank Nicole Grant, who went to Torrington to make certain that she picked up all of our testing kits, and they're now in our nurse's office. But it is one where I can say all hands were on deck in order to make certain that we have the means to address this spike. So, other things that have happened, we made some adjustments. A special thank you to Matt Parachi. Him and I had a lot of conversations about our athletes and what was going to be the unmask our athletes. And we did not move in that direction. And it turned out that they actually removed that ability in the state when they saw the spikes that were happening, because it is not just within Region 12 schools. We have continued to allow spectators. However, it is at reduced capacity. As you can see, we do have a requirement for masks. We've opened both sides of the gym. And even with both sides open, we've reduced the gym's capacity to 25%. Matt made the decision to cohort teams and visiting teams. The good news is most of the time visitors don't want to sit with the home team spectators anyhow, but again, making certain that that cohort and distancing exists, as well as partnering with a parent who actually came up with the idea of creating a waiting room for our swim spectators. So that way parents who want to reduce the amount of time in the pool area are able to just go in when their swimmer is actually hitting the pool. So a special thank you to Anne-Marie Sorbello, who is helping us create some safety for our swim spectators as well. We continue to allow lockers, but it is one in which we are monitoring for interactions and making certain that people are not lingering within that. So over break, we were getting a lot of updates from CDC. We were getting updates from the state, and they were making some changes regarding the quarantine requirements, including the CDC's reduction of the quarantine period from 10 days to 5 days. In conversation with our local health department, as well as reading information, the American Medical Association, who feels that the 5-day quarantine is insufficient. Given the fact that right now we have a significant spike in cases, I don't think it is a good time for Region 12 schools to reduce the quarantine period, knowing the prevalence of spread, and also knowing that 5 days is not considered sufficient. What is supposed to happen within the CDC guidelines is there's a 5-day quarantine, but then when coming in for 5 days, it is with strict adherence to masking 100% of the time. We would actually have to have students that when they come in, they would not be able to eat in the lunchroom if we brought them in on a 5-day quarantine. They would have to be substantially separated from others. And I think when we looked at what that could do socially, emotionally to the students, I think at this time we will revisit aligning with the CDC, but at this time we continue to ask for the 10-day quarantine. We do continue to also contact trace. The Connecticut Department of Education has allowed schools to stop contact tracing, knowing that there were some screen and stay, so now it's just asking people to monitor for their health. Again, recognizing that this is not the time that we are going to loosen up how we're operating, given the amount of COVID spread we have right now. We do continue to contact trace, and we are letting people know, giving them the awareness that they may be a primary contact, which is important when you have people who may have medically fragile people that they interact with. It allows people to make those decisions on how they want to maintain their health and the health of those around them. So we do continue to contact trace. Within this, I do share, and I'll just quickly turn over to, we have a document that we use internally where we have all of our administrators where we have our count timelines. So in the moment that someone is exposed to COVID versus that they have COVID symptoms, day 0 is either the day that you have tested positive or your first symptom. And then we count out starting at day one the next day. We count out 10 days and they're able to return to school after that 10th day. We have gone through on ways what is a primary contact, when someone has to quarantine, when they don't have to quarantine, because we also recognize that students who are vaccinated do not have the same requirements as others. So I apologize, I'm gonna have to, let me see if I can't shift this around for one quick second because the tab at the top is making this challenging. I'm going to stop share for one quick moment. I apologize. I'll come right back. I've just got to be able to toggle across my screen, and I apologize for not being able to finagle that. So the last thing, and I don't even need to bounce back to this, we recognize that the other change that happened with the CDC is right now fully vaccinated is considered that you have received your second dose or your last dose, if or the one dose if you had Johnson & Johnson, but it also includes the booster. The Connecticut State Department does not have that same requirement. We currently are working on just if they have received their second dose or their last dose, and 2 weeks after that is considered vaccinated at this time for us. So that is a lot of information. And at this point, I'm anticipating some questions from our board members. So I will open it up with any questions or concerns or things, because I know that if you have visited any social media, if you have even walked out, I'm certain you've heard from your neighbors. They're getting a lot of emails from me regarding notifications of COVID infections in Region 12.
Okay. Questions? Jen?
It's actually just a statement, which is kind of perfect timing because Matt Prachi's here tonight. But I just want to give a shout out to Matt. I've gone to the last couple of games at the basketball games, and they were run perfectly. Everybody was, wearing their masks and everybody was following the rules, and it was still really great to see everybody come and cheer on Chapag. So I was encouraged to see that. I know a lot of parents felt happy to be able to come and watch their sons and daughters play, and other members of the community to come cheer on Chapag too. So I know it's tricky to keep it safe and still be able to allow others to come and view, because I know it's such an important part of our community to be able to come and cheer them on. So I just thought it was a really great event. And I'm just happy to see that we're still doing it. So thank you, Megan, for not putting the kibosh on it yet.
I'm going to say to you, Matt Prachi deserves like therapy bills, because he deals with me like breathing through the paper bag and talking me through all the things he's doing for safety.
Yeah.
And it really is those extra measures that give me confidence in being able to make these decisions.
Well, having the presence of Matt there and Don and Officer Namo and everybody there, it was great. So I just loved it. And it's nice to see that in the midst of all of us stressing out, having a few hours to just forget about it and cheer on Chapag is fantastic.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I just appreciate how Megan, you've run through this minefield and been able to keep our schools open. I think it's so important. Kudos, it's not been easy, obviously. And I think it's just so important to our community and our kids that we're not remote learning. Not that we're not going to have to at some point, but you've really done a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you. And please know our administrators are amazing. Our teachers, it's a lot of can-do attitudes that are out there. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate those things.
Okay. Very good. Let's move on to the next item, which is reports and recognition. I guess I'm first. January 18th. It's going to be a big day. On that day, our new planetarium equipment arrives, and we'll be opening that planetarium shortly. The other thing that's going to arrive is the maintenance garage. That's going to arrive on site on the 18th. So we're going to have that going on at the same time. And I guess the big news of the day is the Agriscience and Science Lab construction project is 100% complete. We have finished construction. While we're not 100% sure where we're going to be at the end of the day as far as under budget, over budget, whatever, because we know where we are now, and we're about $400,000 under budget. However, when the state's finished with us and they do their audit and whatnot, they may claw back a few of those dollars. So that's entirely, but our expectation is that we will not have gone over budget on this job, and that we may in fact be under budget on it. We still are, we have been consistently, and we are actually a little more under budget than we thought we were about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So this is all very excellent news. The project is complete. The project is beautifully done. We have a stunning and spectacular facility that's resulted from it. And we had today what I would hope to be our last meeting of the building committee, but it looks like it's going to be the penultimate meeting because we have one other little thing we have to come back and approve. So we've got about a 5-minute agenda for some point in the future. But the project itself and the building and construction is done. So I thought I'd let you know. And if there are no questions, then we'll move on to Treasurer's report. John?
I don't have much on the financial front other than I know Nicole was going to be making a pretty extensive presentation regarding the finances and the programs and the tuitions, and so. But I do want to remind both the public and the board that the 2022-2023 budget process is well underway. And I just wanted to state a couple of upcoming meetings that for all those concerned might appreciate. The department budgets are going to be shared with the Finance and Operations Committee on January 24th. And then on February 1st and February 3rd, the first being open meetings for the Finance Committee, the town finance members, for the elementary school budgets. And then on the 3rd, open meetings for Finance Committee and town finance members for Chapag and the Agriscience program. Then on February 14th, the final budget presentation to the Finance and Operations Committee. And on March 7th, the superintendent's budget will be presented to the full Board of Ed. So yeah, it's good to even view a couple of the meetings or whatever, so everyone gets a better understanding of exactly what the budget is about, when the budget is presented. Thanks.
Okay. We'll go on to Megan's report.
All right. Well, I think Greg glossed over the completion of our building project. But I think, and I hope this entire board knows how much time he has given to this project. And, I'm indebted to Greg for his attention to detail, following up, knowing when to when to pull the trigger, when to back off, and quite frankly, I think the level of exact excellence is by him. And so I really, Greg, thank you. And it is really good to say it's come to its completion, and we're very happy. So I do want to just bring to everybody's attention, because obviously in the midst of COVID, other things happen. And just to publicly share, and I did let the Board of Education know the timeline that happened with Wednesday's wild weather. This past Wednesday, many districts across the state were thrown for a loop. When we did our weather check at 4:30 in the morning, everything looked good. It looked like it was going to be a regular day of school with some patchy ice. And suddenly we started getting reports that things were going differently. And this is after we checked with our towns, we checked with our buses, and it came on fast and furious. I'm terribly embarrassed when we have to give a late call that leaves people scrambling. I'm terribly upset about the fact that we had staff members who had already come into the school building. We actually had some students on a bus, and the bus driver made the decision to bring those children back to their homes because that was what was safest. And those are the moments in which you realize like how much it truly takes a community to make this all happen. And to know that that driver took extra care to make certain that those students got right back to the door when typically they're picked up at one location. And again, just knowing the level of support we have out there. But I, recognize that we had administrators who were pulling together, late arrival schedules to then switch it around to also scramble to make certain we were ready in case any children came in. And then we had parents who had to coordinate their own schedules. So I apologize for how that went down. And unfortunately, I'd say that's a once in a decade experience. And I'm a little older and never want to have that experience again. So I'm planning my retirement accordingly. We also, we were able to host Nanawag at our Rivals Night last week. I do want to thank the Chippewa administration, Jen Pody, just like you said, they were there designing it. Matt Parachi, thank you for making certain it was a safe celebration of our athletes. And so again, we recognize that we walk into all situations with a great deal of planning, but to know that they are matching efforts with outcomes. And I think our children are better for it. We do want to congratulate our National Honor Society inductees. Our newest members were sworn in on December 7th, and I think we have some board members who are there cheering extra loud for some of our new inductees. But again, an accomplishment for those who have been putting a lot of effort in their academics. And you think about what it takes now for our students to achieve in times in which some of their education was disrupted. Again, a testament to their commitment to themselves and what they are doing. Also, I want to thank our individual schools who were able to support the arts and had safe holiday sing-alongs, concerts, and were able to coordinate some of those events in advance of the holidays, but also taking into account how do we do things outdoors, how do we get extra social distancing, and I think we were able to capture our students' ability to be in the spotlight. And so I hope that people are watching some of their local notices from the towns, but also in our region in review. We have been advertising some of our adult education classes from our Agriscience program. We have put those underway. And in those adult education classes last month, sauerkraut was made. I believe that there were people walking around burping jars to make certain that they were getting the right amount of kraut. And next month, I'm told that we will be cheese making. So these are some really great opportunities that are being offered to community members who are interested in learning. We don't think that education stops in 12th grade. We think that lifelong learners and Agriscience was brought to this community because we had hoped that this was going to be a community program. And so I hope people do take advantage. There's also going to be some metalwork classes coming up. I know that Peter Lawler is working on some of those opportunities. So if you have an interest, or even if you have an idea, we are open to coming up with new and adventurous ways to get people into our schools. We recognize that we can't offer the big crowds, but it is certainly one where we hope that what we are providing is a rich experience. So just a couple of updates with personnel. We have some new appointments. So I'd like to welcome Mary Clark, who is our new school nurse at Burnham School. She comes to us as a former school nurse in Naugatuck and has literally hit the ground running, as you can only imagine, given our COVID cases. So we welcome Mary, and hopefully the pace is not as frenetic forever. We also like to welcome Connor Dusky. Connor is a snow removal substitute. So I had mentioned when we talked about some of the shortages we were having with our custodians, to know that Don has been working to create some alternative ideas in which we have people come in, and Connor has been hired. So during snow events, he can help us clear that out. And so he's already been put to the test and is coming out with shining marks. And what makes me super happy is he is also an alumni. So we love when that happens here at the schools. Margie Grote is the Agriscience teacher now. As you know, she has been our Agriscience operations manager. With the departure of Dr. Hermans, what we were able to do is we were able to take Margie's position and make a half-time position for teaching. So she was able to pull right in. We made certain that the students didn't miss a beat in the transition between teachers. And we'd like to welcome Josh Murphy, who is our new grounds and maintenance worker. And Josh is a resident of Bridgewater. He's active in our fire department, and just know that he helped us coordinate a graduation and still wanted to work with us. So I think that's a testament to him. We do have some who are exiting. So we say goodbye to Allison Buckley. She was the educational assistant at Chippewa Valley School. We say goodbye to Jeff Massarelli. He was the maintenance worker. And also Allison Montague, who was our farm manager at Chippewa. We knew that the farm manager was a short time position because we knew eventually our students would be able to help manage our animals and care for the barn maintenance. And they have been able to do that. So the transition has been very, very good. So at this time, any questions or concerns about my updates or personnel?
Pete, please unmute yourself. No, Pete, you're still muted.
Now?
There you go. Yes, you're good now.
Just a question for the superintendent, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I realize our ag program is new. Just seems like we've gone through a number of people. In a sense, an ordinary, because we're new, I understand that. But can you give us a little idea of why we seem to be turning over people?
I am trying to think as far as making certain that we're not going to enter into any discussions that are personnel related, but I can say to you, no one has burnt any bridges. It's never been in a way that there is any kind of ill will towards Chippewa. Some have wanted to take other opportunities, others realizing there's a lot of effort in starting a new program. and recognizing, what it takes, and there's a concerted amount of effort. And others had other opportunities materialize. It is one that there's not a lot of agri-science teachers out there, so a lot of us are trying to, fish in the same pond for some of these opportunities, and sometimes another offer comes up. We have been trying to figure out what is the right management for us. I can tell you that our agri-science department gets a great deal of support, but it is one that we did not have a director necessarily. And so now we've created opportunities and operations in which we are looking for synergies. So not everything feels so laborious, but I think when you start a program, everything feels laborious. But I can tell you that now, and appreciate Teresa's support in directly supporting our agri-science teachers. We have the content coach, and Peter Lawler has taken on that position for us. And we have an operations manager. So it's our hope that as we get better in creating this system, it becomes more functional, and people feel that they know their place and can kind of get comfortable in the rhythms and routines. But right now there aren't rhythms and routines. We're building.
Okay. Are there other questions? Joe?
Just a quick to return at the adult education. How many did attend the sauerkraut thing?
I think there were about 10 or
Okay.
12. I can't remember exactly. I was one of them. I was there. And it
Yes.
was
Okay.
absolutely spectacular thing. It was really on lacto fermentation. It was like to ferment foods in an oxygen-free environment. So there was a lot of science that went on in that room. And we all left there with a gigantic container of sauerkraut that we all had to burp for about a week to 10 days so it wouldn't explode out of the glass. Yes, there you go. There you go. And it was fascinating. I really urge people to take advantage of these programs. These are really terrific.
Now, right now, do we have a limit on how many can attend?
Well, this one was limited because of, I think this was limited a little bit more because of the fact that you had to have all these jars, you had to have all this cabbage. I mean, that little jar, that jar, which is fairly, I don't know, about 14 inches high, has 5 pounds of stuff in it, 5.5 pounds of stuff in it. So there was a lot of work, and it would have been hard if there had been a lot of people there. So they limited it. They're not always as limited, but this one was limited.
And
Okay.
COVID, to be honest with you, there are certain
Yeah,
things
that too.
So we look at not only just the it's the experience, it's the materials that we have, but it's also, with the health and safety of those who are participating. And when Rachel says she's got a cheesemonger, I'm going to trust her how many people can make that cheese.
Is that already opened up now? I mean, do you already have people registered for that, or?
That'll be forthcoming. I know she's looking at February, so certainly share as it becomes available.
Joe, just sign up.
Yeah. No.
What is the
actually? Some towns did better than others. Roxbury put it on its town broadcast, this thing they send to people who sign up with their email address or text. So I saw it the very minute it came out. The first day it came out, within probably an hour of it hitting, and I immediately signed up because the suggestion was that it was going to be limited, and therefore you didn't want to wait. So I think we need to maybe make sure the word gets out through whatever means each of the 3 towns has, so people have an equal opportunity.
I can share with you that I did let the selectmen know who won. So
Yeah, I mean, literally, of all the people there, I think if there were 12 people there, 10 of them were from Roxbury. So it was clearly we got the leg up because of our reverse 9/11 system in Roxbury.
Okay.
Yeah, Pete. Pete, you
You're
have
mute.
you're muted. Pete, you have to unmute. We can't hear you.
I did.
There you go.
I just want to back up for a minute. On the football issue, is that something the superintendent wants to discuss with the chairman at another meeting, or is that a moot issue?
Well, Pete, I think when we get there, you're going to see that tonight's purpose of that is to discuss it. It's to understand what's involved in it. It's not to take any action on it.
Okay. So it'll be on the agenda at some point.
It will be on the agenda at some future meeting.
Okay.
Correct.
Very
It's
good,
on the
thank
agenda for conversation and new topic, but it is not on the action items. So it is
Okay.
just.
Yeah,
I
there's no action item. So, okay.
Understand.
Any other questions? All right. So we'll move on to committee reports. Curriculum and educational programming. Justin.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we just had our meeting. So let me see. We did a bunch of things. So Megan, if I leave something out, can you let me know? All right, so first thing we discussed was the new course, the Black and Latino Studies. Dr. DeBrito gave sort of a brief overview of each of the units, how it's broken down by semester. The first semester focusing on the Black experience, and then second semester focusing on the Latino side. And we sort of talked about how new courses happen. The next thing we focused on was the TAG and STEM program at the elementary school levels. Superintendent Bennett really tried to focus on how, excuse me, how we are trying as a district to meet the needs of all the students. So basically what the conversation revolved around was sort of, where are we as a district? Do we want more TAG, or do we want more STEM focused enrichment for the elementary schools? And let's see, then we had a discussion on foreign languages. Alicia Hines from the high school gave a brief sort of history for us as to, where we were. In 1996, we had 2 teachers, a full-time at Washington, WPS, and then one split between Booth and Burnham, and they were getting K-5 education, or K-5 every day. In 2015, we had 1 teacher, and it's down to 2 days a week. And then by 2017, it was down to 1 day a week. So as a committee, we really just started talking about ways that we could sort of reignite the program. Then we had, let's see, Mr. Lawler gave he just basically looking for ideas on field experience ideas, based off the success of the field trip going to the national convention in Indianapolis. So he's looking for more ways to get students involved. One of the ideas that I personally thought was interesting and great was going to other places around the country to see how agriculture is done in other places in various climates, and then also potentially going to other countries. And then we started to get short on time, so we're going to have to continue this conversation for our next meeting. But Mr. Croft shared a PowerPoint presentation with us on grading and how it's changing. We sort of talked about what grades mean to us. But basically, there's just going to be a lot more going on with that. So we'll have more to report in February.
Okay. Very good. Comprehensive report. Joe, Ed Advance.
I attended the Ed Advance Zoom meeting on January 6th. There were 3 key points that they are going to work on this year. One of them is retention and recruitment, as they're going to do an internal survey about employee satisfaction and how to recruit new people, as obviously they are losing a few employees here and there. Early childhood and Head Start, they need to find a new location for their Torrington and Winchester spaces, as they have lost them due to COVID. So they're trying to get that squared away by 2023. Also, they're going to expand on their IT departments, as there's been so much demand for updates between Power School and the new CT SEDS programs. Also, during that meeting, we had an election of 2 board members. There was a treasurer that stepped down. So we have a new treasurer that was elected, and also another member at large. A couple of new district representatives were introduced. Danbury and Barkhamsted joined. And then they also touched upon a fuel oil consortium, which they're going to work the details out. I don't know if that's something we would be interested in, but I could get more details on that and fill us in. But
I'll tell you later. I know you back.
Now, right?
Joe?
And that's it.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you. Finance and operations, Alex.
Yeah, we had our last meeting just before our last board meeting, so nothing new has come up there. The one issue that I want to bring up, and this may be procedural, is that it was discussed, it was our excess funds, that we should probably put them into CDs in a ladder format, and such that a quarter of them come due in 90 days, a quarter come due in 180, a quarter come due in 290, and a quarter come due in a year. I think we need a motion to authorize Nicole to go ahead and open those accounts with the appropriate banks. Also, there was a situation that occurred at the end of last year where we thought we were going to get a stock gift, and we didn't have a brokerage account to send that to, and we sort of were scrambling to get a special meeting to authorize Nicole to open up that type of an account. It turned out that wasn't necessary after all, but I'm wondering if we at this point should make a motion to approve Nicole's ability to open accounts for both CDs and stock gifts if necessary. Greg, I would be interested in your thoughts.
Nicole, are you feeling like we need a resolution here?
I don't think that we need a resolution yet. What will happen is once the banks start to get the accounts together and in place, they'll give me their form resolution, and we'll need to read that into the board agenda.
All right, well, I do see on our action items tonight, if considered if appropriate, approve the opening of a brokerage account with Webster Bank. So is that ready to go forward, or do we need to wait for some resolution?
I believe you're okay to move forward, but there will be another formal resolution from the bank. Once I have you're okay to move forward, I'll start working with the bank to get the formal resolution in place.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Alex. Labor negotiations, I can tell you that I'm pleased to indicate that we've reached agreement with our administrators union, and we're going to be discussing that in executive session tonight, and then moving with a resolution perhaps to approve that agreement. So that's where we are on labor. Strategic long-range planning, Julie.
Yes, we had a meeting right before the holidays with our committee. Greg Kava joined us, as well as Richard Lemons from the Partners for Educational Leadership. And he really laid out a framework for us to begin the long-range plan, asked for our input, and it was a very good give and take conversation. We will start right away, pretty much in January. A framework will be implemented by May, and then implementation from summer into the fall of 2022. And I believe Megan has set up our first virtual community conversation for Sunday, January 30th. And so we're off and running with our long-range plan.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to new business and updates. The first item on the agenda is football co-op opportunities. I'm going to turn that, Megan, to you, or
No, we're going to start with me, but we have Matt
Matt
Brockie who's there, and then I know you wanted to engage with some questions, but so to just backtrack and see where this conversation has come from and has gone to. So it had become, let's try this way. I was made aware we had a number of football players who were interested in playing football. In early conversations, we recognized we were getting some Agriscience students who weren't able to choose whether football or ag was what was going to drive their high school career. And so we lost some prospective students. And so trying to get a sense of what it was going to take, and were we possibly able to join one of the teams, or could our students who may be Agriscience students, if they'd be able to continue to play with their home teams. And so in conversations with CIAC, in conversations with Matt, recognizing the only option that we would have is if we had entered into a co-op league. And the co-op league that does exist is Nanawag, Region 6, and Wolcott Tech. So it is the combination of these schools that currently, come together in order to have a football team. For me, originally coming at this more about a business model opportunity. And for things that we do, it's looking at what opportunities can we give students, and recognizing that we had some wrestlers who wrestle with Nanawag because we're not able to host a team. And some of the limitations that happen because football doesn't allow for students to compete on other teams. It was just with this co-op opportunity. So I did get the information, talked to the superintendent in Region 6, who provided me with the memorandum of agreement on how you enter into this co-op, talking to Nanawag to see if this is even something that would be entertained. And then having conversations with Matt Brockie. And one of the things, and putting this on the table, Matt and I look at this from two very different perspectives. So in my conversations, I'm looking at this from the business model and how do we get more kids? And Matt's looking at it from the perspective of what a change like this can do to some of our current programs. And so in our conversations and what you're going to hear, please know, Matt and I have come from a place of mutual respect. It is one in which we want to make certain that we're hearing the voices that are out there, trying to make certain that we recognize what opportunities are we providing our students. And in doing so, sometimes when you get bigger, you may lose some of that depth of getting good. But I guess the question is, do you limit those opportunities? And so we're at the point right now where we know how to do this, but it's a question of if we're going to do this. And this is where we are today at the board level. And so to open up the conversation, to make certain that you hear the voices, consider all perspectives, to recognize that we have lost students because we don't offer football. And there's also the fear of, if we do, what that does to our current programming. So again, if I was to say to you from a strictly business model point of view, I recognize that when you have these opportunities, you have more students who come to explore these opportunities. But the question is, at what cost? And that's where, Matt, if you want to talk about some of your thoughts. And again, I know you have strong feelings, so I'm going to let you please share those strong feelings.
Thank you, Megan. As Megan said before, she and I have discussed this numerous times. There's two different perspectives that we're coming from. I think first thing that I want to just present, because I think it puts things in perspective. I played Pop Warner. I grew up in Massachusetts. I played Pop Warner football. I played high school football before I came to Chippewa. Actually, right before I came to Chippewa, for 2 years, I was a high school football coach at East Long Meadow High School. So I am a very pro football person. I played in the New Milford Men's League for over 10 years. I'm a big fan of the sport of football. I'm not anti-football at all. I am not in favor of Chippewa's involvement in co-op football. I feel as if, in my position as athletic director, my job is to be a caretaker of the program, to be a steward of Chippewa sports. And I don't have any question in my mind and in my experience that it will start as a slow trickle and then it will become a flood and it will really hurt, in particular, our soccer program. I'm in favor of offering as many opportunities as we can offer. For me to come out and say something that could be perceived as limiting opportunities, I don't like being in that position. But I also feel like, you know, Chippewa is, you can only split that pie so many ways before we really start to reduce the quality of what we're offering. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, number one, do we think that opening up this opportunity is going to reduce the quality or the viability of some of our existing programs? I think if we look at some of the other schools that have tried this or have done similar things, the answer to me is pretty clear. It will absolutely siphon soccer players away. And so, I mean, one of the questions is, well, does that matter? That depends on your perspective. I'm going to give you, so in our school, or in our league, we have three schools that are ag schools that participate in co-op football programs. Of these, let me talk about Northwestern Regional first. When they started, they had 2 kids in the football program, and that was for 3 or 4 years. And then there was a slow trickle. They've been up to 35 kids in the football program. They go between 25 and 35. And of the 3 schools that are ag schools that have co-op football programs in our league, there is 1 kid that is an ag student that plays football in the league. So I'm kind of jumping around here, and I started out with the focus being on what my fear is about what it's going to do to soccer. I'm afraid of what it will eventually do to the youth soccer program. Our Chippewa Soccer Club has taken great pains over the past couple of years. There's been a lot of work put in. Just a few years ago, we were in many of the grade levels of Chippewa soccer offering co-ed teams. They worked very hard. They promoted it. We have some spring teams. We have some summer teams. And we have single gender teams for, I'm not sure if it's all levels, but most levels. That wasn't the case. I can tell you that when this trickle begins, when you if you offer soccer, that's gonna really impact. If you offer football, it's going to really impact the number of kids that are in the Chippewa Soccer Club, and then that will impact the number of kids that we have playing soccer at Chippewa. Kids that are now in the Chippewa Soccer Club, they'll be in New Milford playing Pop Warner for the Bulls, or they'll be in Brookfield playing Pop Warner there. Talking before, I started to talk a little bit before about the ag thing, and I know I've heard people say there were these ag kids and they wanted to come, but they're not going to come because of football. I can just tell you that if you talk to the schools that have football, at least in our part of the state, at least in Northwestern Connecticut and Litchfield County, the schools that have ag, that have football, do not see ag kids playing football. As a matter of fact, they will tell you off the record that some of the ag kids are discouraged from doing sports, because as the program gets more and more established as an ag program, there are just so many responsibilities outside of school for them to get involved in, that they just don't have the time. So just the one thing I want to point out, the data, at least the local data, and this is recent data, suggests that while people might be saying that, football is a drawing thing for ag, we're not seeing that locally. Just trying to look, I jotted down a couple of notes here. Basically, I'm afraid if we do that, if we start to offer it, number one, you can't just dip your toe in that pool. Once you offer football, you have started us on a path where you're going to have kids at the younger level playing Pop Warner football. You can't pull a rug out from underneath them. So whatever decision that we make as a district, you're going to have a hard time going back on that. I don't see how you can say, all right, let's do it. If we try it, we can go back and not offer it. I don't think you can do that. And my fear, and this probably won't happen until I'm gone, to be honest with you. But my fear is down the road, a couple of years down the road, I'll probably still be here. I'm not that old yet. I still got too many years left. My fear is that we'll say, you know what, we shouldn't have done that. We've really compromised our soccer program and our other programs, and we're not seeing the benefit of additional ag students. We're just not going to see that. So, I mean, I think you get the point. Just one other thing, for Chippewa to be a sending school to a co-op program, I don't want anyone to think I'm saying this because, oh, this is going to be more work for Matt. It's not going to be any work for me to send kids to another school. To be the host school, yeah, that's a lot of work. We host an ice hockey co-op. To be a sending school, you don't really do much. So this is not I'm not saying this out of a dislike for football. I love the sport of football. It's not because I think it's going to create additional work for me. It's not. I just think as the caretaker of this program, I have to tell you what I think, and I have to tell you what I've seen. I've been doing this job at Chippewa since 1993. I've been the athletic director. I've seen it. And you know, that's my personal opinion. So I'm going to mute myself. And if anyone has questions for me, I will unmute myself.
Okay. Pete, you got to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I've been on the board for 21 years, so this isn't the first time this has come up. What I would say is, if I remember correctly, schools that have football don't have just a varsity team. They usually have a freshman team, a JV team, and a varsity team. You just don't walk in as a freshman in school and jump to varsity. It's a wholly different level. So it's usually a path to have varsity football. We've discussed this many times going back quite a few years. Football is a big sport. There's a lot of people that you need to play football. And it isn't like you put 10, 11 players on the field and you're done. There are injuries. There are many aspects of the game that you need to address. And I guess from my vantage point, it's not that I'm against football. We are who we are. Now, if you can grow the population of the school and double it or add 50, 60%, you could bring up the thought of playing football because you'd have the student body. We as yet don't have a student body to have an advanced football program because you just don't have a varsity football team. So I'm not against the concept, but I don't see how you could have enough students continually at various levels to have a really good competitive football, team and concept at all. I just don't see it, but I'm not against it.
And that's why we're looking at the co-op, because you're right, Pete, we couldn't host it on ourselves. We wouldn't have enough to have a football team, right, even if we had all of our students on either one of those. But this would be where teaming up with other communities who also don't have enough players, so that way we're putting it together. So it's not a solo act. Oh, Pete, you're muted again.
Pete, please unmute.
I think we have to sell ourselves as an academic environment. I think that's really critical. That's part of why we got into Ag STEM, to sell a program, an additional program to offer students. And I think that's what we really need to lean towards. We want to be very academically oriented. And I think that's how you draw students. Once you build a reputation of academia and the colleges you're sending students to and who are accepting you, I think that's where you really need to be when you have a small school system like us.
Okay, Jen?
Well, I actually disagree, Pete, because I think that in order to be the whole package, which I talk about all the time, you want to make sure that you're strong first academically, but I also think that the sports and the extracurriculars are a huge part of building so-called a resume for what they want to do and what they're interested in when they're in high school. So I think that that's a huge draw and pull to our small school, and it has been for a long time. I first of all, I just want to comment on Ryan, because I just really appreciated you taking the time to tell us how you feel and how important football is to you. And I really feel that. Having kids myself that have love of sports, I completely feel that for you. And I agree that a sport and a love of a sport is so much, it's not one dimensional, right? It adds to every other aspect. It adds to your academics. The structure of your sports really bleeds into your academics, right? And the two, for me, my experience is that they work really well together. And so I just really commend you for speaking from your heart, and thank you. And when I say this, please know that I'm rooting for you, but I do worry a little bit about the programs that we have existing and bringing in other programs, such as football. And I'm a huge football fan. I really am. I love going to football games. I would love to have the big lights and have all of people come and watch. And I would do that in a heartbeat, because I love going to all the different sports spectator events that we have. But I do also feel that I'm compelled, because I know the blood, sweat, and tears that has gone into this community, not just at the high school level, but in each of the individual towns, to really build and strengthen the soccer program. And seeing even how far it's come in the last 7 years. And I think, Joe, you could speak to this a lot too, is that we barely had anybody coming, and then you've worked your tail off, and a lot of other people, to build the program. And being a small community, it's hard to feed all the programs, right? And so struggling just to make sure that one is thriving, and then bringing in another, I do worry about that. And so that's a huge concern for me. As I feel like we really need to just hone in on the programs that we have and really make them the best that they can be. And if we were a bigger environment, I agree with Pete on that. If we were a bigger school, co-oping, I'd be all for it. But I worry about the size of the teams we have right now. I know that softball doesn't have anything to do with football, but I worry about the softball team. I worry about, I think lacrosse is a huge sport that I know a lot of people would love to be able to have at Chippewa. And again, it's another concern that we have, being able to keep the other sports that we have without losing them. It's a huge concern of mine. And so I just needed to share that.
Okay. John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, that's one of the first things that came to my mind, was what's going to happen to the male fall sports participation. Matt, how many players on the soccer team now?
We had this year we had 42 kids between JV and varsity this year for boys soccer.
Okay. And I do know that some of the Sherman students opt to attend New Fairfield because of their football program. But what is the co-op league rated as? Class S, like a Class S school?
It all depends. I believe. Football is different. They're splitting the state into 6 divisions next year. So, you know, there's class S, there's class double S, there's M, there's double M, there's L, there's double L. I would assume that they're S.
They are they are in the CTC, which is the Connecticut Technical Conference.
Yeah, because it's Wolcott Tech's team. Wolcott Tech is the school that runs that team, even though it's now at Monowag.
Those teams, those co-op teams only play each other. They don't play the regular leagues, do they?
No, they play the schools that are in their league. So, I mean, there are a lot of co-op schools, especially with the smaller towns. You know, when you get to the class L and the class double L, that's where you see the Greenwiches, the Dariennes, the big towns. Yeah, so in the CTC, it's the Connecticut Tech League. You know, Wolcott Tech's playing against the you know, Caner Tech. There are some obviously there are some non-tech schools that are part of those co-ops.
So as far as say a student participating in the co-op league, is it as prestigious as far as college potential, or I mean, how do the scouts recognize players from the co-ops?
I don't think there's no distinction. There's no difference. I mean, they recognize talent. I mean, obviously, the bigger the school, the bigger the program, the more looks you're going to get. But that just doesn't go for co-op football, or that goes for every sport. You know, people market themselves. If a kid's a good player, I mean, to be completely fair, if you're a good player, whether you're at a small school or a big school, a co-op school or a single school program, you'll get seen.
Okay. I'm sorry, Angela, did you have something?
I do, thanks. I'm sorry, I think my raising hand thing is not working. Matt and I have been having this discussion for 7 years. So I do have something to say on that. Matt's nodding his head. So 42 kids on the soccer team. And my son is one of them. And Evan is a football player. Evan is a center. And Evan said, Chippewa doesn't have football. We can't afford to send me to a private school. I guess I'll play soccer. So he did. It's not his first love. He's not great. He's out there to get some fun, have some fun with his friends.
That's pretty good. 42 members on the soccer team.
They start August 1. They do 2-a-days. They do 90 degrees. They do this at the Pop Warner level. You have to really be dedicated, like somebody like Ryan, to play football. You may get a lot of kids initially, I think, who say, oh yeah, I'm going to play football. How cool. I'm going to be a football player. You get out on that field and you are most likely going to see many of those kids drop away. It is a tough sport to play, to be dedicated to. Well, I can appreciate that we have these other teams, and maybe it's not even so much as drawing other kids in. How about our own kids? If you have 1 or 2 or 5 kids that want to play football, but also want a Chippewa education, why don't they get to have both? Why do they have to choose? My kids had to choose. My 3 kids looked at me and said, I want to go to Canterbury. I want to go to Taft. And I said, I can't afford it because you want to go to college. We have lost good kids, and we've lost good kids who have gone to good colleges that we do not get to claim. Timmy and Danny Manning, UVM, on scholarship, we don't claim them as Chippewa. Lauren Manning, their sister, followed suit. She's a soccer player. She plays for Immaculate. She is all Connecticut, all region, all whatever. We don't get to claim Lauren Manning because we didn't get to claim Timmy and Danny Manning. So we have already lost kids. We have a hockey co-op. We give those kids the opportunity. I think we owe it to our own kids and any kids that we potentially might be able to draw in, to give them every advantage, every opportunity that we can give them. So I think it's something we really need to consider. And for our own kids, I have heard from so many kids homecoming stinks, homecoming's terrible. These kids are home an hour before homecoming is over, or they don't go to homecoming. My kids go to more New Milford football games than they go to Chapag athletic events where they're not actually playing, because according to them, it's boring. Now, I did hear from Joy Rupert. She couldn't be here tonight. She has one son at Chapag, one at Burnham. Both of her kids play Pop Warner. And she said, please let the board know that I fully support football. My kids do want to continue playing and want to play in high school. So I think it's something that I think we really do need to consider for our own kids and for the draw that it might bring.
Okay, Lisa, and then Julie.
I just wanted to add my 2 cents, and that I too want to compliment Ryan for speaking. You spoke very well, and I thank you for your thoughts and sharing it with us. And as I'm sitting here listening to what everybody is saying, and just my 2 cents, I kind of feel like it's making Chapag into something we're not. And I support the athletics. I support what Angela is saying, but we have small numbers, and I've seen our numbers getting smaller. I just don't know if you come to Chapag for Agriscience, I'm just not sure we're big enough to be offering a football team as well. And it's sad, because I know what Megan is talking about with our business model, but I would hate to lose what the soccer club has worked so hard for. And that's just my 2 cents, that, it's hard to make Chapag something that it's not. And I'm just not sure how we would have enough students to support that. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, Julie.
Yeah, I just wondered if there is a way, or if it would naturally be a limiting number, because it's not that we're hosting a whole team, it's that we're going in with other schools. I know my nephew played ice hockey for Chapag, and they were with a number of other schools. So there was only a handful of kids from Chapag that actually were on the ice hockey team. And I mean, I feel for Ryan, he's so passionate, and I'd hate to see an opportunity if it's only, between 5 and 10 at the most kids who would end up playing, and they may not play soccer anyway. I would just, if the numbers would be small, and maybe it wouldn't have that much impact on the soccer club, the soccer team. So I don't know. I just like to see if there's a way that we could possibly do both without really damaging the soccer program.
Okay, Mary.
I hate to say that I have to agree with Matt. I think we're just too small to enter into something else. I feel sorry for kids like Ryan, but I came from a big town where we could have it all. But we could have football and wrestling and everything else, because I graduated with 444 kids in my grade, in my particular grade. So the whole school was even bigger. But we have a small school here, and we have a program, we have programs, but I just don't think we can grow into football. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry to say, but I think we're too small for that. And Matt has done a lot of research into this, and I fear I really have to agree with him that we're just too small to move on to something else.
Jen?
I just wanted to say something that Angela said, because I hear the same thing about how it's so much fun in New Milford to go watch the football games. But if we had night lights at our soccer field, I don't know if they would be complaining. I think the atmosphere at New Milford lends itself to it being a more fun environment. And of course, let's really open up the can of worms and talk about the outdoor lights. I think that would change things drastically at Chapag, and I think it would make it more fun for the kids. So.
Okay, Lisa, you still have your hand up. Did you forget to put it down or do you have something else? Okay. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Alex.
Yeah. I came into this meeting with a definite opinion on it, and I'm now really confused because I can see both sides have a very strong argument. I have always been very pro giving any kid as much opportunity as possible, but I hadn't looked at the other side of the coin. And to be perfectly honest, I'd like to hear from more people who are involved in the soccer program, especially the football program, before having to make a decision on this. So anyway, and Alabama and Georgia are playing right now. So.
Well, that's it. We better stop the meeting and move on.
I've got it on tape.
Okay. Jen.
I'm sorry to keep beating a dead horse, but I keep thinking about what Julie said, and I just would like to hear from Matt. How would you feel if we did a small number? Would that lend itself in terms of being able, I mean, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the subject. I mean,
how would that even work? You mean?
I don't know how any of it works, so I don't know. Like what Julie is saying, that you would limit the number of kids that can be part of the co-op. Is that something that's I mean, I don't know.
I mean, we would have to make a decision as a school. You're only letting certain number. I don't know how you do that, to be completely honest with you. I don't really know how you would. I know that when you host a co-op, when you have a co-op team, you cannot, you can't cut. Like for our ice hockey team, the whole rationale behind having a co-op is on our own, we don't have enough kids to have a full team, whatever the sport is, whether it's hockey, whether it's football. Those are the two main sports that have co-ops. What you're saying is we don't have enough kids to have a team, so we're going to combine forces with 2, 3 or more schools to put together a team. What they're saying is if you're going to do that, then you can't cut. If you're saying you don't have enough to have your own team and you're going to join forces, you can't then limit opportunities. Okay. I've never heard of someone self-limiting who can join a co-op or not.
Okay. I just didn't know. And I just was wondering what that would look like, or have you ever heard of that? But okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
John? And then Angela.
We may not be able to cut, but does the co-op have an opportunity to reject players?
No, you can't. If you have a co-op, you have to take everyone. You don't have to play. That's one of the big things we say with ice hockey. We say, look, this is a co-op program. All those things I just said a minute ago, that's the reason why we have a co-op program. But we're not cutting anyone, but it's a varsity sport, so you're gonna have to earn your playing time. But you can't. The co-op program cannot cut interested kids.
Okay. I'm sorry, Angela, did you have something?
I do, just briefly. I understand what Matt's saying, and he's saying, and his fear is about the soccer team, and it would take away from the soccer team. And so if we don't have a football team, then presumably those kids will have to play soccer. How is that our choice? How do we have the choice, and where do we get the authority to say to kids, guess what? We're not giving you what you want. You're going to do what we want. And if you want to play a sport in the fall, you're going to play soccer. I just don't think that's fair. And I think that, unless you've got these kids who have come up, and I understand that they don't cut and anybody can sign up, but you're going to be hard pressed to find a kid who at age 14 hasn't been playing since they were 5 years old through the Pop Warner system and want to pick up a football. And if you want to play football, you want to play football. So while you may not be cut, you're right, it's high school. Not everybody's getting their 10 plays. You're going to ride the bench. And those kids probably are not going to stick around for practices from hell to ride the bench. So I think that we as a school system have a duty to our kids to say, you know what, we're going to give you every single advantage and you make the choice. And if it's your choice, not to play soccer, but to play football, that's your choice. And we're going to give you that choice. And that's our job, to give you that choice. And all sports are cyclical. We may have the best basketball or baseball or soccer team this year. All those seniors graduate and next year we stink. And it's a rebuilding year. And it's just something that we will do. You know, we weren't an ag science school either, but we did that and we're knocking that out of the park. We have to keep growing. We can't just say, well, this is Chapag and this is us and we're small and this is what we do. Yeah, we're small, but we better start thinking we're small, we're mighty. We're going to offer you every single opportunity we can, academically, in the arts, in athletics, and everything else, or we're going to drive people away because most of our population is wealthy. And if they can't get what they need from us, whether it's academically, in the humanities, or sports-wise, they'll go to Canterbury, they'll go to Taft, hell, they'll tuition their kids into Brookfield if they have to. Not as good academically, but there's a price to pay for everything. So I think we really need to probably think about changing our mindset.
Okay, Jen and then Pete.
I think you're right, Angela. To a certain extent, I think you're right. I mean, I think if we don't continue to grow and change, your point is well taken. But, and I say this with respect, with my own whatever experience, but if you love a sport, or if you're passionate about something, you figure out how to make that happen, right? Whether you supplement with outside clubs or whether you decide to move to an area, that you do. Because the thing is if you're a small town, you're not going to, even if you have a soccer program or you have, I mean, we're a baseball community too, right? Not everybody is into baseball. So you kind of have to figure out what's going to work best for your family. And even if you've lived here for 25 years, it may not necessarily be the right fit still. So my point is that you got to really hone in and make what you have really good too, before you start opening it up to other opportunities. And I think football is a really large sport. And I think it's not, do you want to do it halfway, or do you want to do it really good? I think you kind of have to make sure that what you have is really good too.
Okay, Pete. Pete, please unmute.
Yeah, I move the question.
Well, there's no question to move because we don't have anything on for action. But I can appreciate that. Does that, if anyone else has anything they want to add that's different or new, maybe we should do that. Otherwise, you know, we're going to have to take this up at another time. We'll have to give it some more consideration.
So
go.
So I'm going to speak up for the soccer community because I am the president of the Chapag Soccer Club. It has taken me 5 years to get to the point that we are at right now. We did not have any girls teams when we started. I have pushed quite hard to get to a point where we now have 2 girls teams. We went from being only a 4 team per season to 8 teams per season. I feel that we would lose some players to football, but I do know kids. My older son is friends with a kid that's all he does is play football. He has no interest in playing soccer. So I get it. I get that there are kids that are going to be that way, but I've fought tooth and nail to keep our spring program going. And we have actually come out ahead with a high school age team in the spring, which almost 90% of those kids that played on that team were on our Chapag high school varsity team. I don't want to keep kids from having opportunities, but we really haven't had any football offered. And I graduated in '87. We've never had football offered in Chapag. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes you have to change, but from my side of it, I think it's definitely going to hurt my program.
Okay. I think we've probably exhausted, unless anyone else has someone that has not spoken, any board member who's not spoken that wants to add a different perspective or it's something new. Otherwise, I think we've pretty much exhausted this tonight. And I don't hear or see anyone, so we're going to move on. To
Can I ask a question, if it's okay? Is there information that the board would like us to research as we're considering this and having this conversation? Again, this was just a conversation about where it's moving and where it's not moving. But is there anything that is lingering questions that people would like, Matt's got a network of people and obviously he's talked to, and it's one in which he's also seen where it may not materialize. People may want to do football, but they're not actually doing it. What information would the board want to hear?
In my opinion, I'd like as much information as possible because I am extremely confused at this point. I would love to hear information from Matt. I'd like to hear information from you, Megan, numbers from Nicole, numbers from Matt. I'd like to have as much information as possible so that I can have a serious position or a justifiable position on this, because I'm completely up in the air now.
Okay, Lisa, then Julie.
I just want to say I'm kind of with Alex, and I feel really bad not giving kids the opportunities they'd like. I'm not ready to make a decision against it, so I don't know what kind of information I want, but I would like more information. I'm not sure if that helps you, Megan, because I don't even know what kind of information I want, but I'm not ready to say no.
Well, I guess the question to ask is, are we just looking for numbers, amount of people who've left? What is the attrition because of football? How many are interested? Is it something in which, as Matt said, he can do research on those who have gone into these programs and what it's done to the existing, athletic programs in the fall. These are the things in which I can anticipate what some of your questions are, but I can also say, and Greg, if it's better, if people want to email me questions that you may have as we, put together what is the research and making certain that you are able to consider, the factors that are going into this.
Okay, Julie.
Yeah, it seems to me the biggest discussion point here is how it would impact soccer. And so if there's a way to figure out, and I know it's not going to be a pure number, but how many soccer players would actually defect and want to play football? And it seems to me it's such a different sport. It's highly specialized, sort of like the way ice hockey is. And I just can't see, my just naive opinion is young soccer players wouldn't necessarily want to become football players at a later point in their life. It's something that kids kind of grow up with and do for a long time. Else, as Ange said, they're not going to be playing. They're going to be sitting on the bench. So I don't know if there's a way to figure that out really, but that seems to be the crux of the matter, is how much this would hurt our existing soccer program.
Okay.
One more quick question, Greg. I'm sorry to keep asking.
Jen and then Jane.
I'm sorry. Matt, does the football season bleed into swim? Or is it completely separate?
Depends how good you are at football. Yeah, regular football season goes to Thanksgiving. But if you're good enough to be in the playoffs, yeah, there's a little bit of a carryover. Not a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are swim. I'm sure there's swim and football players. It's more often it's either wrestlers and football players or basketball and football players. But it's the same season. But it's not. It's not going to prevent a kid from playing both. If you play football, you could do a winter sport too.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Jane.
I just have a question. Maybe I'm going down the wrong road, and it might be more for guidance, or Matt would probably know too, but the colleges that our kids mostly apply to, are they colleges that admission directors think highly of having a big football career?
Well, I would say, and other people can speak up here. It's the extracurriculars that you do. I don't think there's any, they don't place basketball above swimming, above football, above anything else. I mean, admissions directors are looking for kids, and it could be drama, it could be music, it could be the debate club. They're looking for kids that are well-rounded kids that are going to contribute. I mean, a kid playing on a football team, yeah, that looks good to a college admissions director, but a kid on the debate club, or a kid in the chorus, or a kid in the drama club, or on the basketball team, those are pretty equally good resume builders for kids.
Pete, please unmute.
Matt,
Yeah.
you want to explain to board members, there are different levels. In all the school system, you belong to a group of schools for the strength and where you're rated. Would you explain to the board members just where we stand in the field of sports at all the various levels that we compete in? You're in class A, B, C, and D.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're Chippewa is class S. I mean, it's, there's, in most sports, it's class S, class M, class L, class double L. I always wondered why they didn't call it XL, but anyways, I mean, that's basically, it's like clothing sizes. S is small. We're always going to be small, no matter what. For the matter of football, we certainly would never be an M or a double M or an L or a double L, but if you were playing in a co-op football program, that's taken into account is the total enrollment of all the schools that are participating in the co-op.
And the universities that come to look for students, they look for the top line, not the bottom line. So to spend money on a program we don't need isn't going to get kids into college in the best colleges that have the best football teams. We're not rated that way. We're rated more towards the bottom than the top. When athletic departments come to look for people for their programs, they don't come to Chippewa. They don't come to the level we are. They look for the highest level that have programs. And I think we're getting away from it totally. We are who we are. I keep repeating that. You can't make us something we're not. And just to offer a program because somebody wants it, you're not going to fulfill what the larger schools are able to accomplish. It's better that we do what we do to the best of our ability, and we have a good reputation at the level we play. But to start spending money on a program, which is a very expensive program to run, to me is a waste of time. And I think the discussion on football is a waste of time.
Okay, Lisa, and then John.
Can we just table this and get more information? I think we all have agreed and exhausted this, that we need more information. And I don't think we should be talking about colleges and scouts and cost because it's too soon, it's preliminary. So I think, I think there's enough interest and information out there that Megan and Matt can get that and readdress the board. And Ryan, I do see you, and I know you are passionate, and it's making me sad to see you sad, but I don't think we should give up this conversation. And if we could just table it and move on.
All right, I saw John's hand up. John, do you have anything to add?
Just a
that's
couple
new?
quick things. I don't want to belabor it due to Lisa's concern, but I think we do have to know, just so we can investigate the potential cost. And I know, Greg, you said that Nicole was going to put together a cost analysis, but is there a fee that we pay the co-op? What about transportation, uniforms? Does that come with the fee to the co-op? Insurance? I mean, there's a lot of variables here, and you're right, over time, but when are we going to know these details?
I can.
Okay, well, I think we're going to know the details the next time we come back together to discuss this, because I don't think at this point there's any and I don't know if we have the stomach to talk more about this. I think we've probably gotten out a bunch of ideas on the table. I think we've heard from everybody just about what their view is, or at least most people. At least 3/4 of us, I think, have expressed a view on this. So why don't we do this? Why don't we move off of this topic, go back to the rest of the agenda, and we'll take it up with some at our next meeting. Okay. And so now at this point, it's time for Agriscience applications update. So we're going to call upon the Agriscience team.
All right. This is Rachel talking. I'm going to get us started. So we had applications due Friday. So we've just had them come in, and we're going to start doing interviews soon, this week and next week, I believe. So prior to the applications that were come in, we did some outreach to the sending towns through virtual presentations, and Mr. Boucher did a lot of that work. So Mike Boucher went out and did a lot of that outreach to the students directly and to the teachers, which also includes the promo video that we made last year. We updated that so Megan Berry could include her contributions to that. We had letters written up that were delivered to the sending towns to be they were sealed and stamped and mailed out to the families. We assume they were mailed out. We can't control what happens once they actually went into the schools, but they were given to all the sending districts to go out to each of the families, the 8th grade families. And we had an in-person open house on Saturday, the 13th of November, with a really good turnout. We had stations throughout the different Agriscience pathways. So the kitchen, the shops, the greenhouse, and the barn and small animal areas. And we had a rotational tour with students leading to tours and showing the prospective students what's going on in the ag program. And I think we got some pretty good feedback with that. And then along with that, there was for all 8th grade who are interested in coming to Chapag, there was an open house. So in December, lots of 8th graders came in the evening and got to see the ag program. And there's been a lot of emails. Mike Boucher was sending out emails reminding families and students of sending towns and current Chapag 8th graders, if they have questions, to communicate with guidance counselors, ask him questions. I also popped into the 8th grade. It's like an elective going on. There was 26 8th graders between the A and B day. So I popped in a couple of times just to check in, see how they're doing, and ask if there's any questions about applying to that program. And Megan's going to get into this in the next couple slides, but we have 19 of the 26 8th graders from Chapag apply to the ag program. So I think that's some pretty nice numbers. And that's what we've done to get kids to apply to our program. Megan's next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Megan Berry, one of the newer Agriscience teachers. So before we take a look at where we are heading, we wanted to remind everyone of where we currently are at. So this is our current Agriscience enrollment by town. And I wanted to just mention that as a new teacher, I had the opportunity to participate in some of the virtual recruitment opportunities through some of our sending towns. And I was so thoroughly impressed by the current ag students who attended and were able to speak so fluently and so easily to these incoming students. I was just really thoroughly impressed, having been at other Agriscience programs, the ability our students have. So this is where we currently are, and Pete is going to show us where we are heading next.
Thank you, Megan. So these are our current numbers as of today. if you'll notice, there are a few smaller numbers in parentheses. Those are numbers that have verbally been told due to the snow days last week that we are expecting to still receive applications, but we do not have them in hand yet. So we are looking at a total currently. We physically have 62 applications this year and are expecting another 6. They are just in the process. We do not have them 100% in hand complete as of this moment right now. And moving forward, our next steps, our department has been working together. We will be reviewing all of the 68 applications this week, starting on that. And every applicant is going to have a personal virtual interview due to COVID. Those interviews are going to start as early as this Wednesday. So in 2 days, we're going to start our interview processes. And we will be meeting as a department to make sure that the goals of our department are met and can be communicated with the students that are looking to get in. We're going to talk about all of the great students that we have the honor to be able to select from. And our goal will be to be sending out our acceptance letters as early as February to get our 4th cohort in to our new growing program. Are there any questions? Angela?
Hi, so you know what, I might have missed this. Of the 62, how many will you be accepting?
I believe Mrs. Bennett could answer that. It's going to be mostly based on their academic standard and rigor. We're going to be looking at every student to make sure that they will be a good fit for Chippewa, as well as we will be able to ensure their success after high school.
Okay, so you don't have, you're not saying we can only accept 20 or 30 out of 62.
No, so we have some contracts with some of our towns. So what happens is our Agriscience teachers go through, and as Pete explained, there's a rating system that's based on the student's application packet, which includes letters of recommendation, what were their standardized test scores, academics, in their interview scores, and also any discipline factors that we take in. They're rated, and we take a look at that. Certain towns have certain seat allotments that we then take a look. So we make decisions on who's going to be waitlisted, who will come in. The beauty of our Chippewa students, which right now I believe we're at 19. Again, we continue to see an average of about, I want to say 17 students every year from Chippewa. When we originally thought in our business model, we were going to have about 3 or 4 kids from Chippewa. We blow that number out of the water. Those are easier to take when it comes to thinking about some of the other core academics. So we are already expecting those kids for mathematics. We were already expecting those kids for social studies, English, etc. So taking a look at incoming, we also need to take a look. We're supposed to have certain allotments within our Agriscience labs. They're not supposed to cap 15. So we certainly take a look at all of those things, balanced classrooms, making certain that we are not just ambitious taking everybody. We want to make certain that the resources are there. So my anticipation and what we've done in the past, we've been able to accept as many as 55 students, and then some go on the wait list. But that said, it also depends on what's happening with our different towns. In years past, New Fairfield, we've had 2 applicants. If you notice their chart that they shared with us, we have 9 this year. In the past, last year, we had 20 from New Milford. We now have 10 from New Milford. Just we're hearing it's a stronger cohort. They kind of stick together. So a lot of different factors. So we may be able to accept more students who had applied this year from New Milford than we were last year. So it fluctuates. We want to make certain that we continue to be able to provide the caliber of students that we know achieves well in the program. We want to make certain that as we're accepting students, we want to make certain that they can handle the demands of coming to a new school, because if they don't, if they make the decision to come to Agriscience and they find it's not a right fit, we are now disrupting their high school education. And I think it's very hard to go back to your old high school. So we want to make certain that through that interview process, through their work with our Agriscience team, they're really understanding the commitment they're getting into and being part of this program. So.
And just a quick follow-up. So if we, I know we have contracts with these towns, but of, I don't know, the 3 or 4 kids that applied from Newtown, if you took 2, does that other kid, did they get to then apply to the non-AWOG program, or no, that's it, they're out?
No, what happens is that you have the sending schools. So there's a catch basement for non-AWOG and there's catch basement for us. So it is that they are applying, when they apply to Agriscience, we don't technically compete with the non-AWOGs of the world. It's just, we want to give everybody an Agriscience education. And it's just those who fall within our towns. I can tell you that we do have some students who have sought special permission from their superintendents to apply to our program. And at that point, it would be special permission from the superintendents to do that.
John has his hand up.
Yeah, I really applaud the enrollment, and it's everything that we have hoped for. In the beginning, I questioned whether or not we would get the attendance, but I know in the lead up to ag, there was a concern about how many of our in-district students would attend. And it was stated then that about 20. Next year, we'll almost exceed 60, which is 1/4 of the total high school population, in-district population. How is that, will that have an effect on the rest of the core curriculum in the high school, or even the electives?
I'm not sure I'm fit to answer that one.
No, John, the answer is yes. If there's a demand, we constantly change and morph based on the demands of the students that are there. And if there's a demand for more Agriscience, then that creates more elective that we should be providing in the Agriscience field. But it is one that, no, we're not looking to also deplete from any of the other programs. This is coming around to that same conversation about what opportunities do we provide our students and making certain they're able to explore those opportunities. But it is asking students, if you're a band member, Agriscience is really hard because it's conflicting and trying to fulfill all of those requirements that we have for Agriscience. So it is asking students to pick. We have seen some students who, as they've gone further into Agriscience, they've left our Agriscience program for various reasons. And the nice thing about our students who have tried Agriscience, and if it's not the right fit, it's not a disruptive high school education. So we are more willing to let our own students try Agriscience than we are for someone from a sending town.
Well, I think, yeah, and to add to that, the sports program, one of the reasons why we were having difficulty with the students completing their commitment hours, the ag students, was because there was a lot of time after school work. And I don't even know how an ag student would even participate in sports, with all the other commitment time and the transportation home. So to and from, thanks.
No, we do. And we have some ag students who are in our drama productions, and we have them in that, they are able to try. And I have to say, and again, a credit to our Agriscience team who also finds some opportunities, including early morning. What do their summers look like? So they do try to work with our students as much as possible. But you're right. We have a lot of demands on our kids' time. That is a fact. Oh, Greg, you're on mute if you're talking.
realize that. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I see no other questions at this point. So is that the presentation, Megan? Are we done?
Yeah, as long as no one has any questions, I appreciate our Agriscience team's time, and you know, a lot of work goes into this. And again, you're selling and showcasing wonderful things, and thank you for your coordination, Teresa, on this as well.
Very much. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to the SHPOG schedule change process and updates. Don?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I hope you're having a nice evening. And as you know, we have a very vibrant committee and panel that's continued since the last time I spoke to you, continued to research different scheduling models and compare those against the needs of our school. And we're coming down to a point now where between the chairs of the committee and the committee itself, we have 3 or 4 potential schedule models that are in the final round and that will be reviewed actually at a meeting Wednesday after school when our committee comes together. And very soon, we hope to be able to make some final recommendations to the superintendent about the schedule that will best serve the needs of our school and our students. And most of the models that we're looking at have characteristics that you would that conjure block-like images, longer periods. Not every class meets every day. There are some flex periods in all of these different models that let students do different things. So that's the direction that things are going. And it's not a very different direction. The momentum hasn't really shifted. The direction hasn't really shifted since the last time I spoke to you, but we're getting closer now to having our finalists, so to speak, after the committee finishes deliberating. And I don't know if anyone has any more direct questions or any other information I could supply. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, any questions? Don, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is the presentation of Region 12 finances per pupil cost in the budget versus revenue, tuition in ag science. Nicole.
Good evening, everybody. Superintendent Bennett has asked me to speak to you tonight about the impacts of tuition revenue. So I would like to get started with that. So each year during budget season, the superintendent and I discuss how projected revenue will offset projected expenses. Projected revenue is a credit that we apply to the town invoices. At budget time, our towns eagerly await to see what type of projected credit will be issued toward their share of the budget. And then it takes almost 2 years after that budget season for the audit of that year to be complete. And once again, we find our towns are eagerly awaiting to see how much money we're going to return to them. So tonight, what we want to talk about is, rather than talking about the projections or speaking in the hypothetical or talking about what's going on in arrears, I want to look at a real-time example of how tuition revenue impacts the cost to our taxpayers of educating our regional students. So we talk a lot about per pupil expenditure in any given year, and it's this term that the state tosses around quite often in educational settings. We talk about how high it is, if it was higher than last year, and what we can do to reduce it. And although I cover this in one of the many pages of my colorful budget document that I give to each year, I do want to give it the term a bit more focus here tonight. Per pupil expenditure is a term that refers to the cost to educate a student as calculated using a formula designed by the state of Connecticut. The figure does not match the cost to our taxpayers to educate a student in our region. The formula eliminates some of the education spending. The result allows for the state to have a reasonable comparison of educational spending across districts. They also exclude from that calculation all tuition revenue that's received for non-resident students. So while the revenue derived from tuition doesn't matter to the state in its calculation of per pupil expenditure, it certainly matters to the taxpayers of our region, and therefore it matters to all of us. Similarly, while the state doesn't consider certain expenses, for example, the cost of transportation, in its calculation of per pupil expenditures, Transportation is a real expense that has a cost associated with us that's paid by our taxpayers. So I don't want to use that term here tonight. I want to use a different one. I want to talk about cost per student. So this term, the way I'm going to define it for you tonight, more accurately reflects the cost to our taxpayers. For this discussion, the cost per student is the amount that taxpayers spend to educate each child in our schools. Unlike the state's formula for per pupil expenditure, I'm going to consider all budgetary spending and all revenue received from non-resident students. The expenses that I won't include are those that are paid from grant sources and not funded by our taxpayers. For the 2021 school year, the district enrolled 688 students. 126 of those students were non-resident. We spent $22.6 million to educate those 688 students. That means the cost per student for our taxpayers before revenue is $32,828. Now let's look at how that cost per student is reduced to our taxpayers. The Region 12 receives tuition from different revenue sources that can be broken into two categories. One is Agriscience revenue, the Agriscience tuition. We receive funds from the state of Connecticut and from our 7 sending towns. We also receive funding from regular tuition that are received from Sherman Public Schools, other districts, our non-resident families and staff. That's second category is what we refer to as tuition in. That's our tuition in money. So if we were to take a look at what we actually received last year, 2021, and I did want to point out that these are now audited numbers. Our audited financials are complete. The report's being prepared. We took in $550,800 in Agriscience tuition and $753,000 in regular tuition for a total of $1.3 million. So, and let me just go back to that slide for a minute. I don't want to complicate this any more than I have to, but I do want you to keep in mind, and I'm sure you've heard me say this again and again and again, that state Agriscience tuition is paid in arrears. So that number that's reflected of $550,000 includes state funding for 45 students, while we actually educated 81. So we will eventually get to year 5 of our program when I'll no longer need to use that qualifier. And I'm looking forward to it, as I'm sure you all are. So this is the impact of revenue on our cost to taxpayers. So this last slide demonstrates that impact. If you take into consideration both sources of income, revenue, the cost per student to our taxpayers is reduced by nearly $2,000 per student. Now, I use the actual expense dollars that were used to educate 688 students. I did not change the denominator in my prior slide or calculations. However, I do think we should pause and consider what the cost per student would be if we changed the denominator to our 562 resident students. And one thought that I want to leave you with before I take questions is that I just want to end this presentation by sharing with you that I think the most important thing about this revenue is that it comes with 126 great kids who bring many good things with them. And the ways in which our schools are enriched by our non-resident students are many. So the positive monetary positioning is just the icing on the cake for us. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I do. It seems to me that back before we had quite so many tuition students, before we had ag science, before we had very many kids tuitioning into our district, the only real tuition students were from Sherman. It seemed like the budget, it cost us, as we were going down toward 550, 600 kids, it seems like it was still costing us $21 or $22 million to educate them. So do I have that? I mean, am I far off on that? That basically the cost for educating these kids from outside the region who are really enriching our program in many, many ways. It's almost, it's not free, but it's not very much. It's certainly not $30,000 a kid.
Oh, gosh, no, the cost is very minimal.
Yeah, so the cost is very minimal, and yet the benefits are huge. So I think this is interesting stuff. Thank you.
Julie?
Well, I just want to make a comment, and that is that I'm tremendously proud of our tuition program, and it's been a long time coming for us to finally see the fruits of what we've been through over the last number of years. And I thank Nicole greatly for explaining the numbers in a way that makes sense. With long-range planning, we have been trying to put out some information to the taxpayers to explain the benefits of the tuition program, and it's not really costing us much to do it, and it's really benefiting the region in a great way. And because the numbers are so difficult to put out there, and because of the money goes back to the towns and all that, it gets sort of convoluted, but I mean, unbelievable. And just to think we have so many kids, 126 wanting to come to Chippewa, is just, it blows me away. I'm overwhelmed, and I'm proud of our district for this program.
Well said, Julie. Anyone else? Excellent. Thank you so much, Nicole. This is really good stuff. Okay, we're back to Don Shell's State of Diversity, the secondary efforts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kava. I'm just going to give a little update on what we have done and what we plan to do this year at Chippewa. Basically, to create programs and experiences to ensure that to help students appreciate viewpoints and experiences and backgrounds that are different than their own. Also, that all students feel the sense that they have equal access to educational opportunity in our building, and that everyone feels warmly included in our building, in our climate. And there are several prongs that we pursue in order to achieve these goals. And the first I would call sort of homegrown experiences that we create in the building to further these ends. A lot of them happen through our advisory program under the wonderful leadership of Alicia Hines. And that a lot of advisory time is dedicated to programming. It's designed to help students connect with people from different backgrounds and study different points of view and manage potential conflict. And the first half of the year is dedicated to what we would call self-awareness and awareness of others, building a sense that the vision you have and the impressions that you have are important, but that there are other perspectives and other understandings that you need to consider as well. And then the second half of the year moves into more robust activities that actually connect kids with diverse partners and create discussions that are managed by faculty and activities that help people explore some of these issues. And I think the advisory program is a really important part of this project. We also do a lot of this work, obviously, in teaching and learning, even in classrooms through our curriculum and what happens in the ordinary course of instruction. So in literature, in history, these are fertile grounds to explore these kinds of things. Students are getting more choice than they used to have in the kinds of texts that they can read, many of which will expose them to viewpoints beyond the Eurocentric world. Also pairing texts with the canon that we do read to provide some of those outside viewpoints. And all this leads to a learning style where kids get to practice making deep inquiry about the world and how it works and all the viewpoints that are in the world. And then we have a lot of just standalone events that further this mission. You know, recently the Spartan Club visited our elementary school to participate in the Holidays Around the World project, which creates a wider vista of global reality and global sensibility for our students. And we have club fairs designed to get all different kinds of students involved and included in our activities. And we have lunch meetings and mixers where we try to get students to sit with and talk to people different than they might ordinarily engage with. Earlier, you heard about a curricular growth that we're going to experience next year, widening our social studies offerings to include the history of African and Latin Americans. I think that's important too. So those are all homegrown efforts. We also work with outside partners, consultants and experts who come in and try to help us build the sensibilities of our students. And we rotate different agencies and different partners each year because we don't want students to experience the same speaker year after year. But every 4 years, we can bring back a partner, and it'll be fresh to all our students. On the docket this year is we're going to have a survivor in to speak to our students about the extremely poignant experience that he lived through. And we're going to have a visit from the ADL that will help us build student sensitivity as far as mutual respect. We're going to have a visit from the Women's Center of Danbury that helps students understand a lot about anti-bullying and gender issues. And we're also currently seeking, and I'm working with the superintendent on this, an outside consultant specializing in diversity that we think may do some good work with our students and with our faculty. The last part of it is how we, all those things hopefully sound proactive, and they are. Of course, in the world that we inhabit, there's also a reactive part. Sometimes things happen in schools that are not desirable. Students say things or do things to each other that are disrespectful or that are not mindful of the kind of diversity that we want to honor. And then we need a plan to help those students, those actors move forward. And we currently have a very restorative mindset, meaning there are consequences for behavior that's disrespectful to others, but also an educational, a learning opportunity for students to learn more about why the choices they made aren't helpful, and how they can make better choices to connect more and be respectful to each other, which is the goal in the learning community. And I'm sure there's more that we can. I was just talking to my team last week about this, more that we can and should do, because this is one of the most important things we can do for our kids, help them understand that the vision they've acquired so far, although valuable, is somewhat sheltered, and they need to consider global ideas and the experiences of people who are different than them. That's the definition of empathy, which is very hard, even for experienced adults, but especially hard for teenagers, but we're working on it. So in those three ways, between in-school, homegrown programs and activities, curricula, outside partners, and the way we respond to conflict among students to help them restore their relationships, we think we're moving forward on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thanks for your time and listening. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Okay, Justin.
We use at my school, we use this this website called disrupttexts.org. I actually just put it in the chat just to you because it's kind of a funky URL, but it takes the those canonical works that we teach in American literature and pairs them with more contemporary similar stories. So it's like, oh, if you like The Great Gatsby, you should read Bodega Dreams, which is a reimagining of the Great Gatsby story, told from it takes place in Spanish Harlem in the early 2000s. I've read it, and it's fantastic. So just something maybe to look into if you haven't looked into it already. They do cover, again, a lot of the canonical works. So.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that particular resource, Justin, and I appreciate it. And I'd appreciate if our teachers could and I could correspond with you if we wanted more advice on it. But the act of text pairing, the idea that we're going to have a canonical thing that's really important to our kids, let's say like To Kill a Mockingbird, for example, right? And then when they're going to pair that with a text from a modern author that gets deeper into some of the issues that book elicits, is a very important technique. And it sounds like that's what you're recommending in the resource that you're talking about.
Right. For as much as we all as a culture, and probably some of us here, love To Kill a Mockingbird, what we have to consider is that, it's kind of, you're still getting the story of Tom Robbins, it's really a Tom Robinson story, I think, from a overly precocious 8-year-old girl, so it's naturally that our narrator is going to miss the nuances of being in a particular culture. So the disrupt text really points people in the right direction to get more authenticity in the voice.
I appreciate you making me aware of that.
Thank you. Yeah, let me know if I can help.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions? Don, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to action items. The first action item is to consider and, if appropriate, approve the opening of a brokerage account with Webster Bank. The primary purpose of this has been to allow us to have a brokerage account so we can receive a gift of stock. So I don't know, Nicole, do you want to take us through any of this, or does anyone have any questions about why we're doing this? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the opening of a brokerage account with Webster Bank?
Greg, I just have one quick question.
Yeah, John.
What are the reasons why Nicole chose Webster?
So we still do the majority of our banking with Webster, our high value accounts. And in this particular instance, I was trying to figure out how we could receive the gift of stock. And I reached out to Webster Bank to see if they could set up a brokerage account with us. And there was someone from their private equity division got on the phone with me, and he was just really informative and looking to help us and understood what we wanted to do. And the account would be no cost to the school because it would fall under our entity of government accounts. So that's a big factor in doing with them, is that it bundles with our other accounts to keep the cost at zero for us.
All right, other questions? All right, do I have a motion to authorize and approve the opening of a brokerage account with Webster Bank?
I so move and authorize Nicole to sign whatever documents need to be signed.
All right, Nicole and whoever else has to sign them. I don't know who they're going to ask to sign them in addition to Nicole, but in any event, yes. Okay, so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. All those abstaining. I hear no one abstaining and no one voting nay, so it's unanimous. All right, do I have a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing non-certified increases for 2022, 2023, the administrator's contract? It says ratify, but in executive session, it will be a discussion of that, not a ratification. That'll take place in open session. And then to discuss a legal matter regarding floor repair. I need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, move second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Who do we want to invite in?
Aye.
We're going to invite, obviously, Megan, but Megan, who else do you want in?
I'm okay with everything else, so I don't think it can just be me.
Okay. All right. Who voted? Did anyone vote against it? Any nays? I don't hear them. And abstentions, I don't hear. So that's it. We will go into executive session.